Hello everybody, I'm SJM. Welcome back to some more Storybook Brawl. Today we will be reviewing a game I had on my Twitch broadcast just recently here, and going over the Great Pumpkin King and how to use him in your composition. This is definitely one of the top contenders in the meta game right now in late September of 2021, because it does a good job of countering against the menace of Good Boy wielding a magic sword. So usually the Good Boy compositions with the magic sword, gives a whole bunch of attack to all of the opposing units, into the thousands if they're doing things right, but they don't get a whole lot of defensive bonuses, because usually they want their good boy to die, so they leave a little bit, not much health on it. So their whole team's got a whole bunch of attack, but very little health. Ideally, you have ranged units in there so that they can attack and kill the opposing units without dying themselves. Now this comes into play when you're playing with the Great Pumpkin King, because it just spawns units over and over and over again, replenishing your board, and then sometimes getting effects with monster manuals or mummies to get AoE damage on their whole team, and that's kind of the way that the Great Pumpkin King counteracts against that high damage, low hit point type boards that the Good Boy compositions usually put forth. So this is a pretty slow Loki start, so I think I wasted like 3 gold in the first 3 turns, although technically I kind of forgot. I probably should have sold off that Humpty Dumpty at some point to pick up a different unit, but I never got punished for that small play error. Especially on that third shop, the shop before this one, I probably should have done that and gotten a better unit on there, but didn't get punished for it. And then I, realized that mistake pretty quickly, and then, I don't actually sell off this Humpty Dumpty. I just get to the point in the game where it doesn't matter if it dies anymore, and it's just kind of a nice little piece of stats on the board for the time being. So. But yeah, the idea with the Great Pumpkin King is you want to, because it spawns units that are a level below the units that die on your board, you want to have as many 6s, evil 6-cost units on your board as possible. And at some points, it actually doesn't even matter which ones are on there. So all the stray Ashwoods that are floating around now, because almost nobody is playing Treants, random 3 big pigs, Grumblegores, of course, and then the Pumpkin King itself. And then if you get lucky enough, you can put the Pumpkin King inside a Captain Croc, which even gives you an extra chance at a tier 6 unit. In a pinch, you can use some of the 5s, like a Rotten Apple Tree isn't too bad to have on your team as well. And sometimes the Southern Siren, not too bad to have, especially if you're going to have an Oni King, because Oni King is sort of the lord for the Pumpkin King build, because it's a monster, and most of the 6s that you want are monsters. Grumblegore is the monster again, and Oni King itself is a monster, so they all gain nice little pieces of bonus. And you can even slot in some tech choices like a Medusa if you want to try and snipe off the magical sorted Good Boy in the first place, just so that it doesn't become that problem at the end of the day. A couple of different things that you can do when you get into your Pumpkin King build. If you're Trophy Hunter, you can use something like a Grim Soul to trigger it, although you just have to be careful you don't have other Slay units on your team when that is happening. You can also just get really lucky and get a whole bunch of Pumpkin Kings, which is what I end up doing in this particular game by the end. So you'll see eventually we end up with a pretty disgusting board that was just too much for opponent to counter. He didn't have the good boy plan going on, but all the same, I just kind of wanted to showcase this game as to how we can get there towards the end of the game. So kind of did a little bit of floundering around in the mid game in this particular instance, but I eventually got so far ahead because I had the adventurers going, and then I don't even remember that I hit an experience spell with Loki, but I ended up on 6, like way ahead of everybody else. So that was kind of one of the reasons where I got away with it, because I got off to a pretty slow start on tier 6. But definitely a lucky choice after tripling up that adventurer getting the sting, so that helps this adventurer get her slays off and getting me that valuable or tasty experience points, which we all love at any point. I don't know why it was so big before we fell into the Royals meta between the time of the last 2 patches, but not a lot of people are doing this power leveling anymore, but it is still unquestionably the most powerful thing that we can be doing in the early game. So a nice cat's call there, and then we end up with the kidnap, and I make another kind of little mental blunder here. When you have kidnap out there, you don't really want to have Medusa in your first slot, because all you're going to get out of is a statue. If you're kind of trying to do something like unlock the achievement of getting upgraded statues, maybe that's something that you want to do. But so here I'm kind of going into 6 not knowing what my final composition is going to be. I was kind of leaning towards doing a scam composition where we have lots of Medusas and Cupids and things that kind of disrupt our enemy's plan in different ways. Not necessarily thinking about going with the Pumpkin King plan, mostly because you can't rely on finding that unit all the time. But both of those strategies resolve around some of these evil units that I'm picking up here at this point. So the Grumble Gore is not so exciting because my 2 Medusas already have lots of attack, but it is a good bonus for my sheep. That might be at the end of the thing. And then here we have the beautiful little Oni King. We've got lots of monsters on our board already, so that was a really sweet find and helped us through the early part of this end game here. And even at this point, we can just be straight monsters. Maybe start picking up some friendly spirits. That'll help buff the team, because I didn't see... Oh, there is a trophy hunter, but the trophy hunter wasn't anywhere close to doing that friendly spirit build, so those were actually floating around in the shops that we could pick up. And then, lots of different directions that we can go with this composition here. You're not locked into anything too strictly like a dwarves build, or if you are playing Royals right now, it's not strictly wrong, but it's not optimal unless you're Miri. So we're thinking about playing that friendly spirit, but I just kind of waffle on it for now, and we'll just pass it up. Medusa is one of these rare units where you don't always snap off the triple of it, because having 2 of the units on board is better than 1. Especially when we have the Oni King to buff it up big enough to kill the statue on the other side anyways. And then here we come across our second Oni King, so just enough gold to buy it. And then earlier you saw me pick up that big pigs as well, just to have that tier 6 evil unit, because I was at this point on the lookout for the Pumpkin King, because we kind of want it in this composition anyways. Getting 1 is definitely a beautiful thing, or you can, have that little bit of extra oomph at the end of a fight. If you're playing with just like the strict monster thing. So there we snap off that Pumpkin King pretty easily, and then there's another tier 6 evil unit. It doesn't matter what evil unit it is, we just grab it. So an Ashwood, even though it's just kind of a vanilla 2020, 21, 21, what have you, 31 or 32, 21, whatever. It works with the Pumpkin King in the fact that it spawns an extra level 5 unit, so you get an extra Medusa, or not, you get an extra Southern Siren, or an extra Monster Book, an extra Mummy, an extra Rotten Apple Tree. These are Rotten Apple Tree probably being the most important one to take down some of the opposing builds, especially if they do have a lot of health. You kind of want to see all those apple trees coming out. A couple of apple trees and a Mummy takes down a lot of compositions. So from here it's pretty smooth sailing. I don't think I drop any more battles through the rest of this lobby. Just because we were into 6 so far ahead of everybody else, and yeah, just kind of cruising along. So at this point we're only playing one Medusa anyways, so I do triple it up and then grab a deck of many things just for fun. Oh, and I forgot about the total derpage I did earlier on as well with the picking up the Merlin's hat. I don't know why I picked it. I just totally forgot I was Loki. So not a good player by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have some good understanding of compositions and how to play, just sometimes fall into that trap of not thinking about it. So this setup with having one Pumpkin King on the front line, you know, here, even though it only spawns one unit, it's better than having, because I've already got the units on the back line that I want. I'm already playing a frontline Oni King. But here we can see where that 51-51 Spellweaver on the other side decides to take a shot at the Rotten Apple Tree for no good reason, and yeah, just kind of really just dies at that point. So yeah, it's getting super lucky in these shops now. 2 more Pumpkin Kings showing up here with enough gold to be able to afford it all. So I mean, the world's my oyster at this point. And then I just kind of decide I'm so strong at this point, I wanted to actually test on whether the Wand of Weirding worked with Loki's spells, because I wasn't sure about this, so that's why I kind of picked that up at that point, and it does not, spoiler alert, so I only get 1 Poison Apple Tree cast, and of course Deck of Many Things I knew wouldn't work with a Wand of Weirding because you're not casting the spell, but it's kind of weird that Loki picking the spell for you isn't casting it, so to speak, but it is what it is. That's the way it works, and there's no way around it. So just keep cruising along here, just looking for those evil 6s, you know, just holding chickens where we can for whatever reason, and then here we realize that we're going to have to play a chicken on the front line. And double support bonuses with Evil Eye is pretty underwhelming. The Spear of Achilles might be a little bit better choice, but +5/+5 on an attacking unit isn't that important when we're going into like big good boy boards. So I choose not to go with that and just go with my own magic sword, because why not, right? Just watching the rest of this play out here. It's pretty academic at this point there. We just want either more triples to get rid of that Wand of Weirding, which we don't need anymore. We did the testing, we found we don't need it. And just keep looking for more of those evil 6s, right? Interesting that we got a Storm King up to 43/43 with Loki, which is pretty not too bad in itself. You know, getting all those extra monster books here and there, monster manuals here and there, and whatnot. And then sort of in these last 2 battles, the hits actually went my way pretty well, as on top of not only having a good unit to counter what my opponent was doing. So everything kind of came together at the end for this one. So I do appreciate you all for checking out the video. Throw any comments, observations, etc. down in the comments if you've got any questions for me, or just, you know, in general, what maybe something I overlooked or maybe have missed, maybe something I flipped past in the shop, which might be of great use. Maybe there's a tier 5 treasure that I should have been looking for, you know, grabbing some neons or something else. Like, That would have been a little bit more beneficial for a Pumpkin King build in general, but yeah, here the Lightning Dragon goes after the Grumblegore, which didn't matter, and then we get the 2 units replaced right away, and then, you know, the whole board empties off, and then Pumpkin King refills it again. He empties off my whole board again, and then the upgraded Pumpkin King fills it back up again with a whole bunch of upgraded units. So this is the power of the Pumpkin King in action. I appreciate you all, and we will see you in the next one.